back in the 1980s, there were twin campaigns that were being promulgated from on high. Now, this was before social media, but from influencers, and this is before people talked about influencers. I've never really cared for that word, influencer. It always just kind of makes me want to punch somebody in the face whenever I hear it. But whatever the equivalent was of influencers back then in the 80s were pushing very strongly two campaigns against two bogeymen. The first of them was drugs. You would constantly hear public service announcements concerning drugs and is your kid on drugs? Here's the way your kid might be behaving if he's on drugs, or if he's suicidal. That was another thing. Teenage suicide, don't do it, to quote the movie Heathers. So stuff involving your kids, your teenage kids, particularly surrounding drugs and depression and suicide. There was this effort made to get parents, really riled up, and to get, there'd be, you would hear things like, is your teenager acting moody? Is your teenager, keeping to himself or herself? Are these, look out for this list of warning signs, and if these things are happening with your teenager, then contact us immediately. Or if you don't contact us, then if you don't get help from us, then please get help somewhere. Trying to make it sound like they're concerned with helping your kid out, when all along it's an industry, right? They want you to feel fearful so that you'll take your kid and enroll them in some kind of rehabilitation program, which will give them money. That's the bottom line. It's exploiting this opportunity. So there was that, and there was also what's what's now famously or infamously known, the PMRC, Tipper Gore and others in Washington, trying to spearhead efforts to curb the content of heavy metal songs or rap songs and so forth, talking about how these songs are promoting all these bad things, and the influence that they're having is really over your teenager is really terrible, and we need to have warning labels. And so eventually they caved in, and there were warning labels on music CDs and gangster rap albums and heavy metal albums and whatever. So these people were the ninnies of their time, and nobody really liked or respected them. It was sort of, when I say nobody, I mean generally speaking, they were unpopular. Generally speaking, people thought that they were obnoxious busybodies. Even if there were even if there were people who said, yeah, a lot of rock music is trash, and yeah, drugs are bad, and all of that, and suicide is bad, and I think it was still generally in the air, generally in the atmosphere, that these kinds of groups, the kind of ones who would push this agenda, that they were ninnies, that they were, essentially the equivalent of, the church lady, Dana Carvey's church lady character on Saturday Night Live, and they weren't accorded very much respect. They weren't seen as cool. Today, it's very interesting to see the way things are shaping up, because today the new ninnies are Facebook. the newest ninnies are Facebook. And the bogeyman is not drugs anymore, and it's not violent or sexual content in pop music anymore. The bogeyman now is extremism. You've probably heard, if you haven't, I'll tell you briefly. Facebook has, in the last couple of days, put forth this effort where, and again, I'm not on Facebook anymore, so I did not experience this firsthand, but apparently what you get is this notice saying, are you concerned that you have a friend who might be becoming an extremist? Might be becoming an extremist. That's really, the wording there is key. Like, there's an ever narrowing range of acceptable opinions and beliefs. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it so that if anyone you see or hear or know expresses any kind of verboten opinion about, I don't know, jabs in your arm, or the most recent presidential election maybe not being the most transparent event ever to have ever taken place in the history of the world, or even if they maybe have made some wisecrack about the current occupant of the White House perhaps not having all of his faculties, or whatever. These might be warning signs, right? It's just like, is your child acting moody and depressed? Is your friend doing this and doing that, and saying this and saying that? And are you fearful that your friend might be becoming an extremist? I mean, the elasticity of the term extremist, which, of course, what is an extremist? You know, it's all semantic ultimately. But Barry Goldwater said, and I do like this quote: "Extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice." One thing I like about that quote is how it sort of embraces this demonized term and flings it back at the disingenuous rhetorician who has, you know, conjured this term for his own nefarious purposes. You know, what is an extremist? If you what qualifies one for being an extremist? You know, it doesn't take, you don't have to look at it that hard or squint that much at this whole or scrutinize this whole campaign all that much to see that it is immensely self-serving, and to see that it's essentially fear-mongering. Now, they do it under the guise of paternalism. They're doing it under the guise of, hey friend, hand on shoulder, I'm concerned about you because I'm concerned that you might be concerned about this other friend of yours who might be becoming an extremist. And if this is the case, you should talk to some people. You should take action of one kind or another. Visit these and they refer you to places. And of course, what it's all about is they want you to snitch on your friends. They want you to be a stool pigeon. They want you to say, the person who lives across the street from me, I've never really, I've always really kind of felt uncomfortable around him because he didn't have his rainbow flag up last month during the month of June. Recently he he made a joke that was that could be construed as racist or something. So I'd better see to it that this person that the appropriate authorities are informed about this person who lived across the street from me, who dared not to put the rainbow flag up. It's always very vague, and it's kept vague. It remains vague, and there's a good reason for that, because they want to keep it vague. They just want to define anyone who isn't going along to get along as an extremist. I've noticed the trend in recent years to label any political party that is, for example, in any way in favor of immigration restriction, to label them as far right. Now, you can have, and this is more of a European phenomenon than in America, where there's this nebulous two-party system. But I've noticed, with political parties in European countries, you can have a party that's like extremely liberal in every way imaginable, except on the subject of immigration. And on immigration, they say, we don't think there should be unrestricted immigration. We think immigration should be more restricted than it is now. 20 or 30 years ago, that wouldn't have been called a far right stance. But today, that it's common to say that, to call that far right. Or if you entertain conspiracy theories. I'm sorry to keep doing this obnoxious air quote thing, but I'm just trying to I'm trying to show these terms for what they are, for being specious. If you think that there is such a thing as a deep state, then or whatever, then you are obviously beyond the pale. You are an extremist, and it's very transparent. And what I guess what I'll close with here is, it's fascinating that the new bogeyman is extremism. It's gone from drugs and suicide and bad words in pop songs to extremism, and also that the new ninnies, the new equivalent of the PMRC, or the church ladies of the society of the 80s, the new church ladies are tech companies, and watchdog groups, and I don't think the backlash against this push is I already can sense it. I think a lot of people find this very peculiar and very creepy, because people don't, no matter where they stand politically, ordinary people don't think of Facebook as in this paternal sense. They don't think, oh, Facebook is my is where I go and to gain wisdom on the ways of the world, and Facebook will refer me to organizations that will enable me to grow as a person spiritually and morally. I mean, most people know that Facebook is just this big tech data mining organization, and they're just on there because it's fun to be able to shoot the breeze with others and share witticisms and share memes and so forth. But now suddenly Facebook is acting like they're like they're the school principal, or like they're your guidance counselor, or most ominously, this pseudo paternal figure that is
trying to put pressure on you to snitch on your friends. I just don't think this is. I think this is shaping up to be a huge embarrassment for them, and because nobody likes a ninny, nobody likes a busybody. Nobody likes a church lady. It's just no matter what no matter what their particular bogeyman is, no matter who they, whatever form they take, nobody likes or respects that kind of behavior, and nobody sees Facebook in that kind of way. So they aren't fooling anyone. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic here. I'm sure they're fooling some people, but I think generally, broadly speaking, this is not a good look for them. It kind of lets the cat out of the bag. It kind of shows, it represents the baring of their fangs, where they were trying to just come across as hey, we're concerned about you, we're concerned about your friend, we're concerned about the state of the world. We want people to reject dangerous extremism. Again, what is extremism? Extremism is just not buying into whatever Facebook and their cronies are selling you. That's what they define as extremism. Fine, I am an extremist. Or as the Obi-Wan Kenobi quote, now famous meme goes, of course I know him. He's me.